What's up, people? Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a long time, and I'm sorry about that. I'll put the workout that I'm doing here in the description below in case you're interested. But let's just get right into it. What am I going to talk about today? You guys can probably guess by seeing the title. And yeah, let's talk about what I've been eating and why I've been eating this way. But before we get into that, let's get into the history of me. Why I got into all this in the first place. And before I even get into that, let me just be clear, this is not advice. I'm not trying to advise you to do anything. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just simply going to share my experience. That's it. You take away from it what you will, do what you want. This is not advice. Okay? If you want my advice, you can apply for coaching and we can talk about that. And even then, let me be clear. The clients that I work with, the people that I work with, I do not espouse this for them. I don't prescribe the way that I eat exactly the way I'm doing right now, which we'll get into, for them unless they're specifically interested and open-minded to that. So, just FYI, just throwing that out there. Okay? So I really do not I don't I'm not saying for you to do this at all. Okay? So let's just get into it. Enough with that. Enough with the disclaimer. But I just want to be clear because I think a lot of people get that impression that when people come on here, maybe you might think of me as an influencer. I'm not thinking of myself that way. I just happen to have a decent amount of following on social media, but I'm just sharing my experience, right? Like everybody should. Whether you have like 200 followers or 200,000 followers, you should be sharing your experience and let people take away from it what they will. And I think people are smart enough to make decisions for themselves. So don't demonize people for sharing their experience. Anyways, so how did I get started in all this? Let me just be clear, guys. If you're watching this, you probably know me pretty well. You probably see myself on Instagram. You probably see that I eat a lot of meat and eggs, and that's what I talk about, and that's what the title of this video is, and we will get into what I'm doing now. But how did I get into all of this in the first place? Well, let me start from the beginning, from when I was an infant. No, I'm just kidding. But just long story short, guys, growing up, I was never a big meat eater, ever. I did not eat a lot of meat. I'm half Indian. Like it's just wasn't a big thing in our house. And like I just never personally liked it either. I would have friends that would talk about craving steak. Like, "Oh, I can't wait to have steak tonight." And to me that was nasty. Like steak would just like it would make me nauseous to even think about it. I know it sounds weird, but don't get me wrong, it's not like I was vegetarian or vegan or nothing like that. I wasn't. I still ate meat, and I did like meat. It's not like I didn't like meat. I just didn't like eating just meat, like by itself or even with vegetables or something. I would like it if it was like in a sandwich or a burger or you know what I mean, like with carbs. So, which is how again most Americans eat their meat. Nobody's really just eating meat. When everybody talks about all these studies and all Americans are so unhealthy, if you look at it, actually, Americans don't eat enough meat. They don't. We all need to be eating more meat. We'd be a lot healthier. That's a whole nother thing. Anyways, so never a big meat eater, big sugar guy. That was me, big sugar kid. So long story short, guys, like my whole life I've always struggled, even as a kid, with joint pain, just gut issues, ADHD, just not feeling comfortable in my own skin, quite frankly. And nothing too crazy. I didn't have any crazy ailments, like nothing, no crazy autoimmune conditions. I had allergies and asthma. I wasn't the most robust or healthiest kid by any means. Always in the doctors. I almost flunked the fifth grade because I was sick for so long. And half of that was faked, but that's another story. But yeah, I was just like prone to getting sick, weak immune system, just brittle joints. I played tennis growing up and my joints would always hurt. This is so random. I'm getting to the point though, guys. I'm telling you all this for a reason, just so you know. So that's my background. And so I've always kind of struggled with these things, and it wasn't until college, until like I hurt my shoulder and stuff started actually happening to me, that I was like, I need to fucking fix this. And I was also studying neuroscience. That's what I graduated with. And so when the going got tough, like second year and onward, when the classes got difficult, I was very much confronted with my ADHD. I was like going crazy. I was like, I can't focus. I can't learn this shit. But I knew I could. So anyways, that's when I first heard Dr. Sean Baker on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I know. Well, honestly, if you're listening to this point, you're probably a real one. So you're not like rolling your eyes at that. But if you say that to somebody like, "Oh my God, you heard that guy on Joe Rogan. Wow, you're such an idiot. It's like, shut up. Just wait. So this guy, man, if you guys don't know who Sean Baker is, he's a very like down to earth doctor. He's not dogmatic. He's not trying to push an agenda. He's just doing what I'm doing right now. Like basically just shared his experience with the carnivore diet on Joe Rogan, right? So, and mind you guys, like I'm not a meat eater. I'm not like, you know, I'm not trying to espouse anything. Like completely unbiased. I'm just purely just kind of looking for help, right? Um, and I was taking biochemistry at the time, summer course. It was during the summer, I believe. Could be wrong. I believe it was a summer course, and that's when we can check. Somebody can check. When did that Sean Baker, the first podcast on Joe Rogan, come out? I believe it was a summer, and I was taking biochemistry. I was taking biochemistry regardless, whatever, because this is why it clicked. Because what he was talking about, I can't remember specifically, but he was kind of explaining mechanistically, why he thinks he's experiencing these benefits from just eating meat. And when I listened to him, I was like, this makes sense. Sorry, there's gardeners right outside. That's fantastic. The one day I decided to do the podcast. Jesus Christ. All right. I hope you guys can't hear that. But yeah, so I, listening to him and taking the class I was taking, learning the stuff I was learning, I was like, this makes a lot of logical sense. And that's when I also started to learn about fasting. Fasting also made a lot of logical sense, just biochemically. Not going to get into all of that. I'm not claiming to be a scientist, by the way. But hey, I do know science, and that's what I got my undergrad degree in, so I'm not completely unaware and stupid to this stuff. I know how to read literature and all that type of good stuff. So long story short, guys, I heard about this, and it made a lot of sense. I was like, I feel like this could help me, especially given my background in not being a big meat eater and eating a ton of carbs and sugar all the time. That's all I ate. And another thing I struggled with, I don't think I mentioned, was binge eating, guys. Like, nobody really knows this about me, to be honest. Not even my own parents, not even my own family. Nobody really knows this about me. This is probably the first time I'm saying it out loud, but I've always had a binge eating problem. I mean, sometimes in college, I would order like a dozen cookies, like big cookies, and eat them all and feel really sick after, and even contemplate throwing up. And like, I'm telling you guys, like, I've been through that shit, and I know what it's like because I have that addictive personality, and I think it all comes from sugar. From a young age, me eating so much sugar, it fuels this addictive behavior for everything else, ADHD, all that stuff. So I had a big problem with binge eating, in college. And when I first got started with intermittent fasting, it kind of like exacerbated my binge eating, which maybe some of you guys can relate to. God, there's so much to get into, guys, but I'm going to try to really boil this down and keep it streamlined and hopefully interesting or useful for you. So, I sat on that for 2 to 3 years. I even had a reminder on my phone that would go off every day at 1 p.m. that would say carnivore diet. For 2+ years, I just looked at that thing pop up every day. I was like, maybe I'll try it today. And some days, I think I did try it some days, but I couldn't do it. It would come to like the nighttime, I'd be like, I just need a little bit of fruit. You talk yourself out of it, you have it, and you're like, fuck. And then you're off, So I struggled a lot, guys. My journey has not been easy. That's why when people like accuse me of being like genetics, like, first of all, you don't know me. You don't know what my genetics are. You haven't seen my family. Like, have you seen my dad or my mom and my ancestors? Like, how do you know that I got these genetics that way? And it's like, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know how hard it was for me to stay lean when I was, first getting into fitness, and how much I struggled with food and how much I struggled with joint pain and injuries and all this stuff, right? So it's been quite the ride. I can guarantee you that. And it's not been easy, but it's all been a blessing. It's all been a blessing, because without any of it, I wouldn't be doing what I am today, and I wouldn't be into the stuff that I am into today. So it all happens for a reason. Coffee break, 1 sec. All right, so where was I? So we're sitting on it for 2 to 3 years, the carnivore diet reminder just popping up. And by now I'm working. I'm working in tech sales, an office job. Started doing jujitsu, just to keep me healthy, and like, I started posting on Instagram kind of like after I discovered intermittent fasting and started to feel healthier and better and got into yoga. That's what started to inspire me to post on Instagram. Then I got into my 9-to-5 job. And I was just kind of tunnel visioned on that. And I was like, let me just do jujitsu in my job, jujitsu job, and that's going to be my life. And, you know, I was going out on the weekends. I was drinking more. I was eating out like 3, maybe even 4 times a week, just getting lunch with people. Just not really paying too much attention to my health, and just going to jujitsu and thinking that was going to be fine. And you know, jujitsu really humbled me and like showed me like how out of shape I was, even though I didn't think I was out of shape. Like if you looked at me at the time, I looked good. I looked lean, smaller than I am now, but like lean and somewhat muscular, and just looking like I was in good shape. Could take my shirt off and look good. But and I'd been doing a lot of calisthenics. I skipped a lot, guys. I skipped a lot of the story, but we're getting to the meat of what we're talking about here. So, doing jujitsu like really showed me like my stomach, like I would get nauseous if I, gassed out, things like that. Like I just had a feeling like this is because I'm not eating right. And again, back we come to the carnivore diet. And that reminder, by the way, guys, is still popping up on my phone, right? So one weekend I hang out with my buddy, and we eat a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of bad food, and just binge. And the day after I wake up, it was a Sunday, February 2020, right before COVID pandemic. What just said the 2 words you're probably not supposed to say, but whatever. Right before the virus hit, and it was February. It was early in February, so not right before, but a couple months before everything went to shit. And what happened? What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I just woke up and was super bloated, and I was done with it. I was like, I'm going carnivore today. I'm just going to try this. And mind you, even up until that point, guys, I'm not a huge meat eater. All right? Never been a big meat eater, not at all. Okay? But I knew that's what I needed. I knew I needed to starve the fungus in my gut, the sugar-feeding microorganisms in my gut, in my body. I needed to starve and kill them all. That was like the instinct that I had deep down. I knew that this was what I needed. And long story short, guys, that was the first time I did carnivore. I did it for over 60 days, 60, 70 days, something like that. And it changed my life. It completely changed my perspective on nutrition. It got rid of so many things that I didn't even know was wrong with me because I'd been living with them almost my whole life. There's so many things that I can get into. And I didn't do it properly. There's a lot of things that I could have done better, but like you find your groove after a while if you stick it out for that long, But obviously, if you have somebody guiding you through it, helping you through, you can mitigate a lot of the BS that I had to deal with. But it was tough, And so, by the way, if you see me talking on this video, I'm live on Instagram, I think, when I did this. But at first, guys, the adjustment was really hard, And the first thing that it did was cut my social circle, kind of could just destroy my social life, which was amazing. That's exactly what I needed at the time, because I could no longer go out and eat. I could no longer drink. There's just no reason for me to be with the people that I was with anymore. And so they all just dropped out of my life, which was perfect. It's exactly what I needed. I just needed to zone in, and that's, you start to see everybody starts to fall away and it's not like they're bad people. They're actually great people. I'm still friends with a lot of them. And it's not like there's anything wrong with them or whatever. It's just if you want to improve your life, you have to go out on your own for a certain period of time. Because if not, you're going to have to conform to what other people are doing, or they might distract you, or you're just not going to have that same introspective experience with none of that external feedback. And I believe it's so important for, every guy, maybe even girl, but I'm a man, so I'm going to speak from the male perspective. It's a very masculine thing. You got to go out on your own. You got to cut people off, figure yourself out, So this was that time for me. And again, guys, I felt the best I'd ever felt. Lean, muscular. I got to a point where I was just like, I lost a lot of weight the first 2 weeks because I just couldn't eat enough. I didn't like meat. I couldn't stomach it, So I tried as best as I can, try to eat a lot of eggs, cheese, But, it was really tough for me the first 14 days. But as soon as that 15th day came around, it was like a switch flipped. And I noticed it when I was interviewing somebody I was a manager before. I was interviewing somebody and I suddenly noticed like, holy crap, I'm not I'm not trying to listen to this person. I'm just genuinely hearing them, and I can absorb everything that they're listening while being very lucid. It was a very interesting thing, hard to describe, but mind you, I've always had ADHD really bad my whole life. So I really think that my whole life I've just gotten used to making an effort to focus on something or listen to somebody. It's very easy for me to lose some, like for somebody to lose me, right? So like if I'm talking to somebody and I'm not like really into the conversation, I'm that guy that will like, you'll finish talking and I'll be like, uh, what? You know, like I just, what about this? And then like literally some people will laugh at me sometimes. Like they'll say some, like go on some long spiel, and then my response will be like, cool. And then they'll laugh because like they know that they said something that should, like they should have gotten another reaction from that, but like obviously I wasn't listening, you know? So like that was like story of my life, right? So that was the first thing. It was a very indescribable thing, but I was like, that energy that I've been kind of using to listen is gone. I'm just listening. And it was a very lucid, interesting moment. And then I just started like waking up easier, needing less sleep. My eyes felt like they were wider. My attention span. I can't even begin to describe to you guys like all the benefits, but extremely beneficial. Okay. And mostly for me, honestly, guys, the reason, like the biggest benefit that I felt from carnivore is the focus and productivity. That's why I'm on it right now. We'll talk about that. So all the other physical stuff is amazing, but when you've had ADHD like me and you know what it's like to be foggy headed and just not be able to focus on stuff and just be so scatterbrained and procrastinate and all this stuff, it's such a relief to have that gone, you know? And like, it's, I can't even I can't even go into it enough because people who have this will totally understand what I'm saying. And maybe you won't even understand what I'm saying because you won't really get it until you get rid of it because you're probably just so used to living this way. I would have never known, right? Until I took the weight off my shoulders with the carnivore diet, I would have never known I was like wasting so much energy just to like listen to people, right? And who knows what else, right? Just reading everything is easier now mentally. And that I believe is like probably the most important thing, guys, because your mental health is, they're both connected actually. Like people separate. It's funny, mental health shouldn't even be a phrase. It's all just health, right? Because if your body's out of whack, your mind's going to be out of whack. If your mind's out of whack, your body's going to be out of whack. They go hand in hand, all right? One fuels the other. So, healing my body through eating the right way healed my mind. I'm getting so off topic. I knew this would happen, but we're just talking. It's all good. So that was my first stint with carnivore. And mind you guys, every single time I've done carnivore, I've done it 3 times now. Like, and of course I've gone in and out, but like I count it when I've gone like at least a month, right? So I've done it 3 times now, and every single time I've done carnivore, my life has pretty drastically changed for the better. Okay, and I'm not talking about even just my body. I'm talking about my life around me, right? The first time I did carnivore, like I told you earlier, I started posting on Instagram again. And I started that in college, but I put it on the way on the side because I wanted to start working and stuff. But then I started posting again because I had that vigor and energy, and the life was breathed back into me because I'd always had a passion about health and all this stuff, and it just came back, and I was like, I need to get out there again. So that was one big thing. And I, started gaining more. It was a big thing at the time for me. And then the second time I did carnivore, I moved out of my parents' house, got my own apartment, started my life, got a house, live in this house now. Literally, a huge change. And I don't think these are coincidence. And then the third time I did carnivore, which was this last November, and I'm still doing it now, I blew up on Instagram. I went from 20 to like almost 300,000 followers in like this span of time that I've been on carnivore. So I don't think this is a coincidence, guys. I think that it brings a different me out, a me that's more productive, a me that's more hungry, a me that's more vital, a me that's more alive, a me that's more alive, right? And the more that you give to life, the more you get out of life. I strongly believe that. So I really think that carnivore allows you to give more to life forget carnivore. Let's just say I think that being sharp and fully your most optimized self will allow you to give more to life and get more out of life. So, since carnivore, guys, though, I've developed another style of eating. Not developed, but like figured this out for myself, and that's what I usually put all my clients on because it's not nearly as restrictive as carnivore. It's much more sustainable, and it was working amazing for me, almost giving me the same exact benefits as carnivore for years now. For 4+ years. But in November, I noticed a skin condition was starting to flare up. That's happened to me before. And I'm not going to get too into this, but let's just say this. I've been to the doctor for it. They gave me some cream. But just like, any chronic condition that you have, if you go to the doctor for it and you ask them one simple question, they'll never be able to tell you. And that question is, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And I ask that because how can I make sure this never happens again, right? If you started having some random thing pop up in your skin, wouldn't that be your first question? Wouldn't you want to know what caused this so you can avoid that? Because things don't just come out of nowhere. Your body's not just like, let me fuck with you today, It's a reaction to something. So the question is, what is that thing? Can we like, brainstorm through this, doc? And it's like, no, they can't. They can't help you there. They're just like, meep, meep, meep. Nope, here's the medication. This is what I learned. This will work. And yes, it will work. But what am I supposed to do? Like, do this medication for the rest of my life? Or like, that's great that it worked, but I'm still curious. Like, why did this happen? Right? Aren't you curious, doc? But they're not curious. They don't care. So I'm curious though, and I diagnose myself just based on what I know about myself and my history with sugar, my history with antibiotics, and the fact that this was a fungal condition. That's all I'm going to say because it's a lot to get into. It's a whole nother podcast. But I deduced these things. And I'm not saying that I knew I was right. It was a hypothesis. I was like, well, given the fact that I've been a binge eating sugar fiend for most of my life, and I did have long bouts with antibiotics in my college years, which is about 10 years away now. But these things affect you in the long run if you don't address them. And the skin condition happens to be fungal related. I think these are all connected, and I think even for me, which I don't think for everybody, by the way, guys, I don't think you need to do this. That's the main point of why I'm talking about this. I really don't think everybody needs to do this unless you have like something specific you want to solve or you just want to experiment, right? Because you have the right to do that. It's your body. And I think enough people have experimented with this diet to show you that you're not going to die. You're not going to get sick. You're not going to have a stroke. In fact, you're probably going to feel the best that you've ever felt in your life. But don't take my advice for it. Do your own research and experiment with your own body. But so I knew that these things were all related. So I said, you know what? At the time, I was eating intuitively like I do now, except I was eating fruit, honey, that stuff. So I was not limiting any carbs or sugar or anything like that. But I had this feeling, and I go off my instincts, guys. This is why I call my page Trevor's Instinct, because I believe that when you put the effort to get to know your own body through research, through physical movement practice, and through trying different diets, through fasting, all you guys who bring up your studies, you don't know shit. You don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, I know that stuff, and I still don't even really bring that up because it's all speculative. You only know what you can feel and experience, right? So shut the fuck up and just try shit. Try shit and document. That's the only way you're really going to learn the human body and your body, right? To a really deep level. Of course, you should read science, but you should also practice. Practice is the most important thing, all right? And now I just lost my train of thought by going on that tangent rant. But anyways, so I think we were talking about the carnivore diet, right? Yeah, obviously. So I had a feeling I needed to cut any sort of glucose out. I just had that instinct. Again, the instincts, the primal instincts. So I did. I had this skin condition, and I even have before and afters. I'll post them if you guys want. I'm not trying to make this about that. I'm not trying to be like how I healed my skin with carnivore. You guys should all do this now. I really don't want that. I just want to elaborate on why I talk about this stuff and just share my experience, my story. So long story short, we only have a few minutes left here, guys. I went on carnivore. I cut any type of sugar out, even from fruit, from honey, from anything, just meat, eggs, and some raw dairy. Within 7 days, my skin was completely clear. I blew up on Instagram. I've been more productive than I ever have been, in recent times, and than I ever have been in recent times, oxymoron, than I have been, since being on the carnivore diet last. Um, and I see myself staying on this for the indefinite future. And I have a different modified way that I'm doing the carnivore diet. I'm not doing it fully strict. I have a specific protocol. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but I think this is it for now. I'm wrapping up the workout here. If you guys are interested in, getting into kettlebell training, getting in the best shape of your life, hit the link that I'll put below to apply for coaching. If you want to get into nutrition and all that, absolutely I do help with that. I'm not going to force you to go carnivore. I have vegan clients, just so you guys know. I'm not here to force anything on anyone. I'm here to help you optimize. And if you don't want to do something, I'm not here to force you to do something. But this is my experience. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it's a little valuable. I think I got one more set here. Let's just drone on a little bit longer. Guys, let me talk a little. I'll allude to this. So the plan that I've crafted is basically strict carnivore. Don't get me wrong, but I've made it a little bit more sustainable by giving myself a day off, and then the next day intuitive fasting, which is a whole nother topic to get into. Some of this stuff is more complicated than it sounds, but very well worth it. And again, I wouldn't recommend you do this unless you have a really damn good reason to do it. Otherwise, eating a diet rich in just whole foods, more like a paleo style diet, is the best that you can do. Eat like a human, find what works for you. And if you need help optimizing anything, hit the link below, apply, and we will talk soon. Peace out, guys. Appreciate you listening. See ya.